Dudes. What's going on? Dudes. Oh, hey, I hear some reverb. Let's stop that shit. Hey. Cool. Much better. Production quality, that's what we're all about. Well, sorry I'm a little late. Dadding got in the way. I really should learn to take this content creation career much more seriously. And sort of push aside all those things that don't really matter. You know, all the little people in my life. Yeah, anyway, I'm just getting to... Oh, hey, look, somebody wants to buy stuff from me. What do you want? You want some deafening essences. Get in my party.
And not before.
Contempt. Cool, yeah. So anyway, I'm here. I made it. Life is good. There I am. I'm trading stuff in Path of Exile. Hello, hello. I've rerolled my character. Guess what? It's a nice Shot Occultist. It's the one that I was talking about the other day. And 5. There you go. Good luck. Cool. Party on, man. So yeah. This character is going very well so far, but I mean it should because I'm like twink to the gills. Might as well make that do 20% more damage. Why not? Or increased damage, excuse me. Excuse me, somebody in the crowd just like lost their goddamn mind when I said more damage. Somebody somewhere was about to be real mad. So I went to see the Super Mario movie today. That was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. Kind of fun, you know, if you really just feel like you've got some time to kill and, you know, you're a video game enthusiast. It's, you know, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff in it and be like, yeah, man, like it's very nostalgic. But as movies go, it's absolutely awful. However, my 6-year-old really enjoyed it, and he knows nothing about Mario, which is kind of fun, honestly. Like, I really have, not introduced him to Mario or video games at all, really. So, he just, you know, enjoyed it for its own merit. There was no, like, I think he kind of knows who Mario is, just because of, you know, that's an iconic character, and Mario's everywhere. But, you know, it doesn't really mean anything to him. You know, it's not like part of his upbringing yet. So he didn't get that dose of coolness that I did. But yeah, it's, you know, it's whatever. It's fun. I'd say most of the people in the theater were, you know, like families there with their kids. There were a few like adult couples though. Just kind of hanging out and seeing it. And my wife was like, why? Why would you ever do that as an adult? Those people must be weird. And she's not wrong. but still, I could see myself doing that for sure. I could see myself doing it. Oh, sold. Sorry, bro. So yeah, today I'll just kind of be going through the campaign with my Ice Shot Occultist. If you're new here, you probably may not have seen any of my kind of unusual builds, but I tend to do stuff that's kind of like fringe meta. You know, like it should work and be a pretty, you know, comfortable build, but it's not something that like everybody's doing. Like if I really wanted to, I probably would have done this as a raider, but that would have been the more comfortable choice. But basically, the end game of this is going to look like massive scaling of negative resistances and using an Eye of Malice, which is a helmet that is worded a little confusingly. It says monsters have 50% increased resistances, and what that actually means is it multiplies their resistances by 50%, or by 1.5, excuse me. So, like, if you drive something to negative resistance, you multiply that negative resistance by 1.5, and they lose a lot more resistance. So it makes a big difference. So, yeah. That should be pretty good on an occultist, because you can get a whole bunch of, like, resistance penalties pretty easily. So, I can walk through that if you guys care. I have a path building mocked up that I can post for anyone who is interested, which I might as well, because chat's not moving at all, so it'll sit up there for a while. Oh god. And it's, you know, pretty far from a final path of building, largely because it has 126 skill points allocated. But, it does look like it should be pretty good. We'll share this, create that link, copy it, slap it in my chat. Boom. There it is. If you give a shit, that's what's up. And that's kind of constantly under flux. I have some other ideas that I'm thinking about toying with and possibly implementing, but we'll see. We'll see how all of that shakes out. And a lot of that'll be budget dependent too, because really I have like... Liquid, I have like 3 divines to work with. And those will probably all go to 6 linking my armor and my weapon. So... basically I don't really have anything to spare right now. But I did just sell a crapload of essences, so that's a nice little windfall. So the other thing that we're going to talk about, well, actually 2 things. We're going to talk about 2 things tonight if I can get to it. One is how to place a central line. So one of our community members, Bodega Man, is an anesthesia intern, which means he's doing his first year of residency, and he's finishing that up, getting ready to start his second year, which is your anesthesia year. So your first year is kind of like randomness, and your second through 4th years of anesthesia residency are all anesthesia specific. And that's when you start doing a lot more procedures. And there's one procedure called a central line, which is very daunting to people who have never done them before, and it's sort of a staple of anesthesia practice. And really what it is just a huge... oh shit, not paying attention. It's really just a huge IV, basically. And typically you put it either in somebody's neck, under their collarbone, or in their groin. And so I will, I know he's not watching tonight. He's gotta be up super early tomorrow, which sucks. Sorry, man. But you know, we'll talk about it. Kind of like watch a tutorial, which I don't have mocked up, but I'll find something. Anyway, watch a tutorial and I'll kind of like comment on it as we go through. So that will be available for him, should he choose to watch it. And so the other thing that I wanted to talk about was basically just the state of residency as a job. There was a post on Reddit regarding a resident who committed suicide, and basically the chief residents, which are kind of the like liaisons between the administration and the residency itself, sent out an email that were pretty much said like, hey, you guys should come to work to distract yourselves from the grief that caused. Super fucked up message, but I felt like it kind of encapsulated residency as a job, so we'll talk about that as well. But in the meantime, that was actually my first death on this character, I think. Unless I died somewhere along the way. Oh, whoops, it's deaths. 3 times. Oh, shit. Well, I must have blanked those other ones. But that's why I don't play hardcore. I would never survive. I can't pay attention to chat and like... I mean, chat's obviously not going right now, but... All the things are distracting to me, and my level of gameplay is not exactly awesome to begin with, so... So this build is going pretty well so far. We've got Mana Bond, or no, Mana Bound arrow, or is that what it's called? I can't even remember what it's called. Made of forged arrows. Yeah. So I have frenzy charges and an extra ice shot going off. Ah, this stupid layout. But let's get some accuracy going. Can handle that. So I'm gonna kill this boss and then get my ascendancy. Or do I want to get my ascendancy first? I don't know. I'm at least gonna kill this boss, and then we'll talk about Central Lines, because I am stoked to talk about that. I like Central Lines a lot. And unfortunately, it's one of those procedures that we get called a lot for. People think it's kind of like a cure-all. Like, you just put a central line in somebody and they can do whatever the hell they want, which I guess to some extent is kind of true in the hospital. But, you know, we've gotten called to, like, put a central line in for lab draws. Like, so somebody can take labs out of it, which you can't do. But that's sort of an insane reason to put one in, honestly. I will depart from what I'm doing for 5 chaos. Yes, please. Let's see. Where is it? There it is. I don't. Boop, boop, boop. Thank you. I wasn't hiding. Yep. Okay. Leave this party. Kick you. You are kicked from my party of 2. It shall be only a party of 1. But yeah, pretty much anytime anybody needs to give a patient who's like a difficult stick for whatever reason, like anything, we get called for that. Anesthesia gets called for a central line, which is frustrating. Because a lot of people think it's kind of just like this magic button that you press, like I was saying. Whereas, you know, it's got side effects, it's got risks. Like, it's not like you just show up and make this happen and everything's fine. Barrage. Let's put that in there. So single target for this build, not great. Not great. And I'm not really sure what to do about that. Like, barrage is, I guess, good enough. Maybe. We'll see. I can swap the barrages. I don't want a gem swap at all. That just sounds real shitty. Like trash gameplay. So unfortunately, like, barrage doesn't trigger. You can't trigger barrage, and you also can't trigger skills supported by barrage support. So I don't like that. Those were my ideas to sort of combat the single target weakness. But spin, 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 around and around she goes. So I don't know if any of you guys have solutions to my single target problem. I'm all ears. I'm looking forward to having chain, that's for sure. Instead of pierce. That'll be awesome with ice shot. Okay. I get it, you can spin around. Alright, Piety.
Can be our greatest achievements.
So I don't know that was... Oh, did I just... Am I level 38? I am level 38. Oh my god. Alright. I'm gonna take out LMP. And I'm going to slap barrage support somewhere. How about there? Mark on hit. That's a big deal. I forgot to use my mark totally just then. Fun. Okay, my other ice shot. Actually, I don't know that I need to get that because I actually bought 2 divergent ice shots earlier. Chain. And I guess I'll keep leveling Pierce just for reasons. Ice shot, I definitely. Let's see. What do I have over here? Ice shot, ice shot. Oh, that's actually my, like... I guess... Let's see, do I have any random nonsense here that I can get rid of? Well, Pierce. Sorry, dude. You gone. Yeah, we'll play with Chain. Energy Leech. Crit damage, Ellie weak. Oh, where's my other gym slot? Oh, it's there. Fuck. Okay. Yeah, so that is like literally all of the gyms that I have. Sacred mana flask. There we go. Alright. Let's move along. Come on, Coyote. Open that shit.
It seems I underestimated.
Chain. That's pretty cool. I don't know, Pierce was good though. Pierce was good. Not sure how much I like having multiple sources of less damage on my main attack though. That seems like that's gonna go badly in some capacity, but we'll see. Sure as shit seems like it's doing the job right now though. 7 projectiles. Archon hit, rocking it. Nice. I have lots of recovery, by the way, in case that wasn't obvious. Just kind of standing in her lightning tendrils. What is it chaining to? Oh, it's just the projectiles. Oh, I got cocky. Oh. It just hurt. So does it mark her each time? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. It seems a bit on the unnecessary side of mana expenditure. Alright, Strahd. There you go. Thank you for Malachi's entrails. Always appreciate a good tripe. Ooh. Hello, level up. How are you? Let's see, do I need... Well, this might be nice because I can chain off her like little platform things. Yeah? Okay. My mana's all over the place. just sit here and spam my arrow at you until you die. That's all I want. It's not too much to ask. Doing dark tech. I wonder if this character will face durability issues later. Because I don't really have any physical mitigation planned. Maybe I should. So I'm planning on using Hiri's Ire, but I might switch to a lightning coil setup. Oh. I don't know. I don't know that Barrage was really doing that much more damage than this is. That's very strange. Why would Barrage not be doing damage? Maybe Barrage support is what I want? I don't know. Give that a try. Just shoot a crap ton of ice shots. What essence of horror for 14 chaos orbs. You got it, brother. Oh, you went to high gauge. Shit. Oh well. What do you want? Horror. Oh, you only wanted one though. Hope it works out for him. Damn, that's a lot to spend on a roll. Jesus. Hope it works out. Alright. Oh yeah, I'm not in maps. I was like, no, did I use my last portal for that? But I didn't, because there were no portals. There is no spoon. There is no spoon. Alright now, Malachi. Or no, wait, it's not Malachi, it's Malagaro. Gotta give up the ghost so we can go talk about Central Lines. Ooh. Taking is a bad idea once again. Woof. Man, if twinked my single target is this bad, that's not very promising for the future. What if I could put like rain of arrows or something? Or even like lightning arrow. Or blast rain? Or what's the one where all of the arrows like link to each other? Is that Storm Arrow? I have to look at that. That seems like that might be pretty sweet. Ah, Jesus. maybe I should start actually giving a shit, running around and playing. Man, this is gonna be great against bosses with lots of ads, though. All my shit's gonna chain, like, whoa. But I don't think I'll have chain or pierce in the, sort of, like, final link setup.
I hate to be critical, but I've seen better.
Because I'll have a couple pierces on the tree, and then I'll have Vengeant Cascade, so all of my arrows are going to be rolling back to me. Alright, bye, Eddie. Open that bitch up. I'll take some accuracy before going in there. Do I want Barrage? Do I want barrage. Yeah, let's try it. Let's try it again. The question is, where did I put the barrage? There it is. Is there a better place to put it? Not red moon.
I have been expecting you,
I've been
witch.
expecting you, witch.
You and I are about to create the most beautiful of nightmares together.
Oh,
Will you go to bed now,
wait a second.
girl? Or do I need to tuck you in?
Where's the barrage? Where the fuck is barrage? Oh, that's barrage support. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Let's fix this. Oh god. That's barrage. Okay. Much better. Let's try that one more time, shall we? But with weapon switch. There we go.
Embrace the future.
See, that damage seems a little bit better. I wonder if, like, his accuracy. Maybe his accuracy is a problem. It seems odd. I guess that could be an issue. Ow. Is that a command? Stop.
What?
Now, exile!
Get him. Get him. Somehow this is like really good music for the situation. Damn, Barrage and Sniper's Mark is really cool. What a great combo. Just shit flag everywhere. There we go. Sorry, Bitey. Giant ass spike in the gut. Alright. Let's go in this beast's anus here. Spiky anus. At that.
Now, let us see if you truly understand what it means to be Nightmare.
Alright, Malachi. Ow. Weird tentacle portal. Yeah, this is more like the single target damage I was using.
Nightmare is the
That's also
true
different accuracy
eternal.
thing. That's really weird. Just wasn't hidden enough. This isn't exactly like setting the world on fire, but I'll take it. Crazy tentacle shoot. Alright, I promised you central lines after this, and central lines you shall have. Continue to talk about it. Where you at, Malachi? It's nice to have a ranged character, because like my last one, I had to be like so close in and just kind of like run by stuff. Like teleport my golems in and then blow them up. I don't think I'm done with that character. I would kind of like to push it further. I had a bunch of things that I wanted to like upgrade on it, and it has lots of upgrades that can be done and make it way better. But they're all expensive, unfortunately. So I figured I would go ahead and just pick another character. Because this one will, oddly enough, it'll actually be pretty cheap to get it to the point where it's, you know, doing well. Not quite as cheap as the other one, I would think, but, you know, still probably talking like 5 or 9 or something.
true eternal.
Yeah, Barrage is great because I have a bunch of stuff like flat
So in
life
love
and mana
with
gain and
death.
shit. So I am tough to kill unless I just get one shot. Assuming I'm paying attention and not just like standing in degens or area attacks like that. Okay. Ah. Oh, fuck. What is my favorite action? Hey, what's up, Scoots? How are you? My favorite action RPG, I would say of all time, it's Diablo 2. Diablo 2 is definitely the one that I have the most nostalgia for. Spent my... Hey! It's good gosh darn. What's up, man? Oh, shit. That's what I get for reading chat. Every time. Every time. My bad. Yeah, Diablo 2 I have the most, like, experience with, and, man, I spent way too much time playing that game. But I would say my favorite one right now is Path of Exile. Other very good options include, Last Epoch, what is it, Chronicon, some other good ones. It's Grim Dawn. Grim Dawn's probably number 3, my third favorite. It's a bit slower pace. Alright, let's see. Let me get my rewards.
Take care.
And we'll talk about
Just make life complicated.
that I played during college. College and high school. Yeah, it came out when I was... So it came out in 2000, right? So I was 16. Chain, Hex Bloom, increased AoE. Might take Bone Chill, just in case I decide I want to use Vortex, which I don't think I will.
Act with care.
Alright, let's talk about stabbing people in the neck. This is a very long Subtractem video. Alright, central line placement. Tutorial. Path of Exile would definitely be way up there, for sure. I would say, like, Dead Space. Dead Space would be pretty high up there too, right? And honestly, the 40k universe. The 40k universe would be really bad also, where essentially if you're not, like, a turbo-powered, you know, genetically engineered superhuman, who's, like, living and breathing armor pretty much, you're just, like, rank and file grunt who gets thrown into the meat grinder. Like, that is if you're human. Humanity ain't doing so well in the grim darkness of the future, to say the least. Yeah, fighting that boss in real life, you were, like, literally inside... I've forgotten what the beast is in lore, but it's essentially, like, this crazy, like, cosmic being that holds, you know, all of the horrors of life and all of that. Now, these are very, like, very freaking long tutorials. Let's see if we can, make it through one of these. That's
Hi guys, I'm Mikhail Pazdernik from Prague ICU. Our next video is dedicated to jugular CVC line insertion, which is one of the most common and important invasive procedures on ICU. Do not forget to go through our CVC line insertion presentation that will give you more useful information and tips and tricks about the topic. Before CVC insertion, place the bed in mild Trendelenburg position that will decrease the risk of air embolism and ensures maximum venous filling. Before scrubbing up, perform a provisional ultrasound to check.
So what he means by that, so maximal venous filling. So like when you tilt one way or another, your blood actually flows to the dependent side. So like the side that's down. So you can actually kind of effectively bolus yourself like anywhere from 500 to 800 mils of blood from your legs just by tipping the patient backward. So like if they're doing really badly acutely, and Trendelenburg position is like head down basically, and reverse Trendelenburg is head up. So yeah, so when you do that, their veins in their neck get bigger, basically. It increases cardiac output because it increases venous return to your heart. So that's what that does. And the air embolus thing, if you, there's a theoretical risk of getting, like, entraining air through this IV, through a central line that you're placing. And if the blood is, like, basically if there's, like, more pressure against that vein, it's just going to push air out and, you know, not, like, let it into the vein. I've never really had that issue before, but it's one of those things that is, you know, basically tested on constantly. So anyway, here we go.
Check vein patency and exclude thrombosis. Jugular vein is circular.
Yeah, so this is your carotid. This is the IJ, internal jugular. This is the common orientation, so obviously you have to be kind of careful to not stick the carotid. It's a bit of a problem. Yeah, you don't want to stick major arteries that go to your brain. That generally isn't a good idea. But if you do, they actually seal up really well. In a lot of ways, you're better off sticking a big artery than a small one, because smaller ones just kind of keep pumping and bleeding, but bigger ones are, like, really thick and muscular and kind of seal themselves off. But it's still a problem if you hit the carotid, so don't do that.
And collapse easily. Use also color Doppler. Scrub the skin with chlorhexidine extensively and drape the intended area.
So hey, look at this. This patient's had a heart bypass before, or well, some sort of heart operation where they opened his sternum. And he's obviously awake right now. So if you have an awake patient, generally you'll anesthetize the skin and give them some sort of sedation. So they hopefully don't remember it, and they hopefully sit still. But for my purposes, I prefer them asleep, so you don't have to worry about that. The fuck? We don't get volume? No talkie? Okay.
Dark, non-pulsatile flow.
Maybe they just, like, didn't talk for this whole part of the video? That's strange. So that's an ultrasound probe, in case you don't know.
In awake and minimally sedated patients, skin should be infiltrated with a local anesthetic.
So what he was doing right there is, the idea is you use the probe to get your target, which is the IJ in this case, in the center of the ultrasound probe, and then you just stick the needle in the center of the ultrasound probe. What he's pointing at right here is the local needle. I never do that. I never infiltrate local under ultrasound. There's just not a whole lot of reason to do that, because you're just supposed to be hitting the skin. Like, the skin is the part that hurts, not anything below it.
Under ultrasound guidance,
Yeah, so you
always
can kind of see
check
the
the
needle
needle tip.
poking down right there. Yep, there's the local.
Approach the introducer needle at approximately 45-degree angle. Image of a needle tip needs to be followed all the time. Never advance the needle if you are unsure of tip position. Tilting and rotating are common movements of a probe that help to optimize the visualization of the needle tip.
Yeah, so you can see the needle.
Always prevent the
vessel right
puncture
there.
of the posterior wall
Right
of the
there.
jugular vein. When flush,
So what you do is you slowly advance that needle and you draw back on the syringe at the same time. So when you're drawing back, you get blood return in the syringe, and as soon as you get that blood return, you stop. And what I do is I rest my hand on the patient and hold the needle. So that makes it's not foolproof, but it makes it less likely that you're going to, like, move your needle a whole bunch, because holding it in the air like this while you're trying to, like, switch crap around and get your wire to thread through it, which is what he's going to do in a second here. So, like, you put a wire through that, and then you put the tubing, like the IV itself, over the wire. And so if you're just, like, trying to hold this steady inside of a blood vessel, there's no freaking way that's going to happen. So yeah, like I said, I anchor my hand on the person and hold the needle that way.
Of venous blood is obtained.
Which he is sort of doing, looks like.
Dark, non-pulsatile flow. Advance the wire into the needle.
Yep, so see those marks there? There's 3, like, each one of those marks is 10 centimeters. So at the very beginning of the wire, there's 1 mark, that's 10. And then there's 2 marks, that's 20, and that's 30. So generally, you want to advance fairly far, and this wire is probably, like, in or right next to the patient's heart. And that's okay. That's fine. That's standard. But sometimes you can see something called ectopy, which is where, like, the wire contacts the heart and screws up the electrical conduction in it. And so their heart, they'll have, like, a brief arrhythmia. Which, theoretically, you can, like, put somebody into, fatal arrhythmia with that. And I'm sure that's happened before, but I've never seen it. So yeah, you clean off all your crap, and then he's going to make a little nick in the skin, like make an incision with a scalpel, and then you dilate over that. So you have to, like, make the hole in the blood vessel, and in the skin, for that matter, big enough for this IV to actually get in. So that's where we're going next.
Withdraw the needle while leaving the guide wire in place. Double check the position of the wire with ultrasound in transversal and longitudinal views.
So basically what he's doing is making sure that that wire is where you think it is, because it's possible that, like, you somehow got it into the carotid, because it'll still thread. If it's, like, if you go through and through, it'll still go in. And it may have gone, like, in the vessel and back out, or who knows. So you're just making sure the wire is in there before you put a catheter over it.
Dark color of venous blood might be checked again.
So that's kind of another way of confirming that you're in a vein. So if it's dark blood, it's probably venous. If it's bright red, you worry that it might be arterial, and that you stuck the carotid, which happens. I think I've only stuck the carotid like 3 or 4 times ever, because you're really careful to avoid that.
Make a small superficial incision at the entry point of the wire to facilitate the passage of the dilator. Insert.
Oh, so one thing that I didn't mention, there's actually a valve. So your veins have valves to prevent backflow. And there's a pretty good-sized valve between your IJ and the vein that joins it to make your superior vena cava, which is your right subclavian vein. So there's a valve between those two, and sometimes your wire will get hung up on that, and it feels like you're in the wrong place, though you're actually not. You just kind of have to push through the valve, which is something that you don't want to do always, because that wire kinks and bends super easily. So there's 2 main things that you can do there if you're trying to advance it. So this wire has something called a J loop on it, which is basically like the end of it is curved like a J. And the idea is that it prevents it from, like, puncturing things. So you can spin that J loop to maybe, like, orient it better with the valve, so, like, it slides through the valve instead of hitting, like, butting up against the sides. Or you can actually pull on the wire, because this quote wire is actually a small wire with another small wire wrapped around it like a spring. So you can kind of, like, pull on it to make it straighten out, make the J loop straighten out. So then it's smaller. The presenting profile to the valve is smaller, and you can get it to go through. And then you let go of it so it doesn't, like, poke through their heart accidentally. Anyway, moving on. So he's dilating the vessel right now, so you can put the IV catheter in.
Insert the dilator using a rotating motion. Avoid bending or kinking of the wire.
Yeah, which is easier said than done.
Remove the dilator and anticipate bleeding. Apply gauze pad to minimize the blood loss. Then advance the catheter.
Yeah, so for beginners, when you Like, this is one of the more nerve-wracking parts, because when you put this tubing on here, the wire will not be coming out the back. So it comes out the brown part. What do you call it? Brown lumen. So you have to slowly pull the wire back and advance this catheter over it until the wire pokes out the backside. And then you grab the wire on, like, from above the brown lumen, and then push the catheter all the way in. Did you make it in time for Central Line? You sure did. Here you go, buddy. Here you go. We're about halfway through. But yeah, this is the money shot. This is where the thing just gets pushed all the way in. So
Do not advance the line until you have hold of the end of the wire.
yeah. So that's the wire coming out the end. That's actually fairly far, in my opinion. I usually, like, grab it when it's like half an inch out. Just for, you know, like, to prevent pulling the wire out of the blood vessel you're in. So you hold that, and then you advance. Oh god, that would make me nervous.
Remove the wire and check the blood return.
Yeah, so what he did, never do that. Never advance the catheter without holding onto the wire. That, like, in worst case scenario, that wire can get sucked into the patient, and then you have to go fishing for it. And that's not fun. That will really, really piss off your vascular surgery team. The dialysis patient? Oh yeah, cool. Sometimes those patients are hard because all their vessels have been stuck so many times. And they're, like, really unhealthy, and their veins are sclerosed and terrible. So that's a challenge. That's a good learning experience. Yeah, it was terrible. yeah, they can be hard, man. They can be real hard. So was it a dialysis catheter? And the reason I ask, for those of you who don't know what that looks like, a dialysis catheter is like the size of a mechanical pencil. It's fucking huge. So, like, this thing is, you know, nice and tame. It's like a large IV. A dialysis catheter, like, literally you're putting a mechanical pencil in somebody's neck.
In all ports. Aspirate and flush all lumens and reclamp and apply lumen caps.
My advice is to not do this. That's actually a pet peeve of mine. When people use these clips, like, I never think about that as a reason that, like, my line might not be flowing. Like, just don't do that. Put a cap here. There's, like, these little occlusive caps that you can put on here that when you screw an IV into it, it lets flow through. Just use those. Because if you clamp these off, nobody's going to anticipate that. And they'll be like, why the hell's my central line not working? And it'll take a minute. There's only so many things that it could be, you know, if a central line's not working, but just adding that step to somebody's, like, troubleshooting list is just not worth it. So don't do that, in my opinion. So he's just drawing back on this, making sure it actually, like, works and flushes through. But yeah, that shit drives me crazy. Hospitals just wanted something because patient had such bad access. Yeah, that happens constantly. So yeah, now he's just
Suture
sewing
the
it.
line to allow 4 points of fixation.
So another thing that's important is to learn to sew. Just watch a YouTube video and do it. Steal some suture. Just learn to sew. It's not hard. Like, once you do it, you'll get it in an hour. No problem. Need to practice 1 and 2 hand ties? Yeah. A 2-hand tie is probably the most useful. I am not, in fact, AFK. Yeah, I would learn 2-hand ties and maybe instrument tie if you're not super good with that, but instrument tie is so freaking slow. Come on now. Do you want the essences or not? There you go. Thank you. Good luck. Wow, that's a very interesting canned response. But yeah, two-hand tie is fast and all you really need. That's what I do. I actually tie left-handed, oddly enough. I learned to tie left-handed. I'm not sure why. I'm kind of like almost ambidextrous. For some things. Yeah, so for an awake patient, I definitely would not suture my line at 4 points. Because that just sucks. It takes longer, and you're sticking your patient 4 times instead of 2. And I don't like this. So I use, there's multiple lengths of central
Finally,
lines.
apply the sterile dressing.
There's multiple lengths of central lines, and I use a 16 centimeter one, and so I just hub it. I just hub it every time, so you don't have that like extra little dangly piece hanging out of them. Because a lot of them are 20 centimeters, and you don't really want to do that because it's generally not 20 centimeters from somebody's neck to their heart. So you'd like put the catheter like in their right atrium, basically, if you pushed it all the way in. Unless they were like super tall, but I don't think I've ever seen someone do 4 points. I have done that for the longer catheters. You know, if you have like a little old lady who's, 5 feet tall or something, and you put a 20 centimeter catheter in, I've done that before. It's just a waste of time. It's not a good idea. Left IJ is 20. Yeah, I can. Yeah, it doesn't bother me to put a 20 centimeter from left IJ, but since I went into private practice, I can definitely count the amount of left IJs I've placed on 2 hands. Probably can count it on 1. Yeah, I don't do left IJs very often. Even though I can place lines left-handed, and I've done it many times, just because of like space reasons or whatever. But yeah, so after this is all done, you just put a dressing over it, and you're finished. So I'm sort of disappointed that they didn't show setup of the kit, because that's actually the part that's like hardest, in my opinion. Because you have to sort of like know what goes where, and if you don't, like, so back here we'll go like, this is uninteresting, this is just dressing. So let's see, where is it? I didn't
Be infiltrated with a local anesthetic under
Yeah.
ultrasound guidance. Use a needle.
So
at
that needle. So this needle in the kits, at least all the kits that I've seen, this comes with a like very firmly attached needle cover, like plastic needle sheath on it. And this needle is also very firmly attached to this syringe. So you have to like break both of those attachments before you can get started. Otherwise, it's going to be really difficult because you're going to have to like set your ultrasound probe down and like pick up a bunch of crap, and you're going to be fumbling around. It's going to take a whole bunch of extra time. And so like beforehand, you ideally want to have those occlusive caps that they had. Where are they? These things already on your central line, so it's just there, and you're not like, you don't have to clamp this off and risk, blood bleeding back. You want your flushes if, you're going it solo. You want your sterile flushes available. You want your ultrasound probe cover if you're going to use one. Like, all of that stuff should be thrown on your sterile field. So, like, preparation of your kit is definitely the most important thing. Like, the technique for placing it is pretty straightforward, as they just showed. But if you, add time to all of these steps by fumbling around and, like, not having stuff ready, it's going to be a world of hurt, and it'll really suck. And you'll probably, like, be bringing the needle in and out of the IJ, or whatever vessel you're going to. You're going to create hematomas. You're going to make your life, like, way freaking more difficult. Do not recommend, do not recommend doing that. I have done that. Learn from my mistakes. That's what this show's all about. This is learning from all the dumb shit that I've done in my past. Let's learn subclavians. So that's an internal jugular. Let's learn subclavians. Because subclavians are cool. I'll tell you how I do them while we're let's see, landmark guided subclavian. Okay, 3 minutes. Yeah, we can handle that. So the prep for this is the same, right? You want to have all of your needles like ready to go. So I mentioned that sheath. I have it just like hanging loosely on the needle, so when I pick the needle up, it just slides right off. And then also like I said, I kind of take the needle off the syringe and then just like gently put it back on, so that's still like sealed. You can aspirate through it, you can draw blood up through it, but it's like easy to take off. You only need one hand to take it off. And then I have my wire ready to go, so I can just like set the syringe down, pick the wire up without having to like, look at it. Because if you look, you like move your head, you're more likely to move your hand with it. So if you do that, then you might come out of the vessel and you got to find it again and all that stuff. So don't do that.
You want to get everything ready, as always.
So he's got his wire there. So part of the prep. So you saw him just take that cover off. Let's see if we can actually see this. So that wire comes with like a little plastic protective thing. And so I mentioned that these have what we call a J-loop on it. You have to pull that part of the wire, the part that like curves around, back into this little sheath right here. So you have to pull it back in there so it's functionally straight, because if you try to advance a curved thing through a needle, obviously that's not going to work. So that's part of your prep. And people like don't tell you these things, so that's an important step. So he pulled that off, and the thing that he just did there where he held it up was he pulled the J-loop back into the sheath. And so you'll see he's setting up all of his stuff so it's within, arm's reach.
It's just lines.
So he's, I guess,
You won't find the
priming
brown one because
line?
the
I'm not
wire's
really
gonna
sure what the
come
point
out
of that
brown
is.
one.
So hard to learn it without doing it? Yeah, it is. It's like virtually impossible to do it to learn it without doing it. Like you can see it and you can like this is so you can be like, "Oh, yeah, I think I've seen that." Yeah, all of this is definitely hands-on for sure. And like I mentioned before, I fucking hate that. I hate clamping those lines. It drives me nuts because I never think about it. So this is good advice here. Scalpel, dilator, catheter, stitch, dressing. Yep. And you have it all free and clear, because it kind of comes like stacked in here in not necessarily a haphazard way, but not really like an organized fashion. It's not in the order of use, so you kind of have to arrange your kit, as they say here, as you're going to use it. Don't do that. Don't leave sharps unprotected in your box.
So
You're gonna fucking stick yourself. Guarantee it.
my finger is there at the top of.
Let's see. Middle finger and sternal notch. Thumb and deltopectoral depression next to clavicle where it curves.
The clavicle, okay, back here, resting up against the edge of the clavicle. So my thumb is literally a thumb breadth away. Patient is in reverse translumbral, so the vein should be nice and full. You literally put it through the skin, and then.
So that is close to what I do. So what I personally do is I feel the sternal notch, which everybody has one. Let's all feel our sternal notches. It's right there. And then you feel where the clavicle angles backwards. Yeah, the heads of the sternocleidomastoid. Yeah, that's decent. I think, so the reason that I don't do that is a lot of people don't have, like, good SCMs, honestly. Like, old, tiny, like, frail ladies and just, like, super sick people. It's kind of tough to tell where their muscles are. So what I do, everybody's got bones, though, right? So I feel this. Like, I feel the sternal notch. I feel where their clavicle kind of noticeably starts angling backwards, which in this guy looks like it's probably there-ish. Like, usually there's some mild bony prominence, like, where that happens. I think you can kind of see a little bit of a shine right there. So it's probably right there. And then I make a right triangle with those two places. So, like, this kind of trends up. So he's injecting pretty darn close to where I would. I would probably do it a little further down, like maybe right there. And the reason for that is twofold. So one, it's much easier to get under the clavicle if you start further back. So this vessel, the subclavian vein on both sides is like right under the clavicle. So if you start right next to the clavicle, you have to take this like awkward steep angle to try to get under it, and you increase your risk of sticking their lung and giving them a pneumothorax. That's obviously not good. So if you start a little farther back, you have an easier angle of approach. And when you're first doing this, that affords you the luxury of just straight up intentionally running into the clavicle. So you stick them here, and then you just go shallow and hit the clavicle, and then you just kind of slowly walk down off the clavicle. Does that make sense? So you like go in straight, you just hit it, and then you go down, and you're probably gonna hit it again. You go down a little bit, and you get a slide right under it into the vessel, ideally. And that's a good way to sort of safeguard against puncturing somebody's lung. But yeah, that's why I do that, and it's also easier for me to get a straight shot into the vessel, so you don't. And those are two different things. I know that description is a little ambiguous, I guess, but it's easier if you start a little further back. It's easier to get into the part of the subclavian vein that goes straight instead of like trying to angle up towards the sternal notch. Does that make sense? So like you can see his angle of approach is like pointing this way, but if you start down here a little bit, you can approach it from like more like horizontally, like across the patient's body. And that minimizes your risk of hitting something shitty that'll cause problems. Okay, anyway.
Go, and I'm feeling it with my thumb, and then I'm touching his clavicle. So there I am on the clavicle. So I know what the depth of the clavicle is. Now I push back, and then I push this down. So I'm pushing the tip of the needle down. I'm pulling back on the syringe with this hand, and then I'm just advancing.
Don't do that. Don't push the needle down with your thumb, because you're gonna like at some point you're gonna slip and stab yourself in the thumb. Don't do that. Don't have your hand in the way. The mantra of everything anesthesia is nothing sharp towards you. That's like, yeah, that's not safe. Don't do that.
Under the clavicle in a straight line towards that sternal notch.
Like if you need to force your needle under the clavicle with your other hand, you're doing it wrong. Just to add to that.
And there it is. I've hit the vein. Okay. Take that off.
So see how he had his wire ready to go. He's holding this real tight. His hands anchored, like you can see his fingers bent. His hands anchored against the patient. So that's not going anywhere. In a lot of these like huge, in both real fat people and really muscular people, it's kind of sometimes tough to hold this needle in place, like because you're like barely hitting the subclavian vein. It's like not long enough. So you kind of have to like tent the skin in a little bit, and that causes problems sometimes. So you have to make sure that this hand is anchored very well, so you don't move that needle in and out.
Not spreading back.
And if you do, it's not a huge
the
deal.
one
You
thing that
just redo your
sometimes
line.
happens, especially
So did you see how he switched that side? So that J loop has a definitive curve, and it is with the curve of this circle. So the way he's putting this in makes that more likely to go up the patient's internal jugular vein. So the curve of the J loop is towards the patient's head, is what I'm saying. You want it towards their heart, because that's the direction you want it, like the line to go, right? So if your wire guides the line up into their IJ, it's technically usable, but everybody who sees that x-ray is going to throw a fit, and you have to replace the line. Even though, as far as I'm aware, there's not any evidence that that's actually a bad thing. It's just one of those sort of like culture things that's pretty much everywhere. Like if your line's going up into a head instead of down into a heart, then you're redoing that line 10 out of 10 times.
Especially on the right side, is that the wire won't feed.
So this hang up at 8 to 12 centimeters, that could be the wire trying to turn the corner up into the IJ.
In which case, a good maneuver is to get an assistant to pull the shoulder down. And I actually pulled the shoulder.
Never let go of the wire like he did. Do you see how he's like adjusting a bunch of shit without his hand on the wire?
Side is that
Don't
the
fucking
wire
do
won't feed. In which case, a good
So he's
maneuver is
just
to
kind of
get
like
an
messing with
assistant to
crap.
pull the shoulder
That wire's
down.
just chilling there.
And
Don't
I
do
actually
that.
pulled the shoulder
Hold the
down
wire. Always,
beforehand.
always hold the wire.
Okay. The rest of it is just like any other central line, right?
So he's got the dilator.
But you see how
And so, one thing that I didn't mention, don't push the dilator all the way in. Okay, because that dilator is really long. It's probably, I don't know, 5 inches long or something. Generally, the vessel that you're looking for is like a couple centimeters deep. You know, so maybe 1.5 inches tops. So that's all you need to put the dilator in. You don't need the whole thing.
okay, this is
I feel like we're bordering on penis jokes here, but
important.
just
See how I
go with it.
stretch the skin? I'm actually not going to cut his skin because he's got such loose skin. But you actually remember we were talking about stretching. See how I counter traction, and then I push this. All the time I've got a wire. So that's why I was, you know how I was talking in the lounge about the counter traction. That's
Compress puncture site with... Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yep, compress the puncture site because basically you just like opened up a giant
that
hole
is.
in a very significant blood vessel.
So the risk of a pneumothorax is nil, because I never point it down towards the lung. And when you start going into the block route, and
There you go.
start
So he
scanning,
did that.
the
That's
lung is
exactly what you
actually a
should do.
long
You
way
kind of like
away.
switch hands like that. Like cross your hands over to get the wire out. Oh, he's putting it... Wow, that's
So you see
exceptionally
how fast a subclavian line can be?
responsible of him to put the wire away that way. I've never done that. That's a good idea,
This is just
actually.
the flush, so it's a nice backflow.
So then he aspirated everything, pulled out blood, make sure you could pull out blood from the line and flush it through easily, and then you secure it in place. And femoral lines, you do the exact same way. I don't generally like doing femoral lines because they're
When I'm
super
ready
dirty.
and not before.
Like, especially in someone who needs a femoral line. Like, those people have typically been in the hospital for a while, and they're sweaty, and typically obese. So groins are very, like, warm, moist, gross places. And bacteria like warm, moist, gross places. And if you give those bacteria a direct conduit into a major vessel, they will have a party. And for that reason, I prefer not to do femoral lines. Unless you just have to. I mean, sometimes you just have to. Like, in your dialysis patient, like, maybe they've just sclerosed all of their blood vessels and there's nothing fucking left. And that happens. Or they've got, like, so people who have dialysis get something called a fistula, an arteriovenous fistula made, and it basically connects an artery and a vein and lets them have blood drawn out and replaced at a high rate. Oh, so maybe you should back up. So dialysis is basically like external filtration of your blood for people who have kidney failure. And they need that. They need to be able to have their blood filtered, like, at a high rate to live. So they go and do that for 4 hours every other day for the rest of their, unfortunately, fairly short lives. So if you have a, like, failed AV fistula on one side, you can't use that side. For a central line, that is. Or often cannot use that side for a central line. In times of emergency, you can actually stick somebody's fistula and, you know, do whatever you want with it, basically. But that's kind of a life or death thing. I do not recommend doing that if you don't absolutely have to. But yeah, sometimes you have to use the groin, and it's not my favorite, but it is very reliable. Like, the femoral pulse is super easy to find, and you basically just go medial to it. So the thing that you remember for the structures in your femoral sheath is either navel, which is nerve, artery, vein, lymphatics, in order of lateral to medial. So lateral being away from midline, medial being towards midline. Or my personal preference is remembering venous penis, which means the vein is nearer your wang. And so the artery is lateral to it. So basically you just feel their femoral pulse and then stick, like, to the middle of that. Which is handy, because if you've got your hand on their femoral pulse, then you know exactly where that is and you're not going to poke it. But if you do, then you can get yourself an arterial line, which is also probably pretty useful for a patient who needs a femoral central line. But yeah, that bleeds a lot. So maybe don't recommend doing that if you don't have to. And you can do femoral lines under ultrasound. I think technically you can do subclavian lines under ultrasound, but it's gonna be a little dicey because the clavicle's in the way. And as far as for like anesthesia management, there's a I find myself leaning towards, there's something called a cordis, which is basically a really big IV, like bigger than the one you just saw. So central lines, contrary to very common belief, are not, like the triple lumen ones that we just watched being placed, are not volume lines. So, like when you're having surgery, generally a fairly standard size of IV to have placed is either an 18 gauge or a 20 gauge. And in kids, it's a 22. So a triple lumen catheter has a 16 gauge, which is the brown port, and two 18 gauge ports, which are the white and blue. Because of fluid flow mechanics, there's a equation called Poiseuille's law. And those of you in anesthesia, the sooner you get acquainted with that, the better off you'll be. But it's a physics principle that rears its ugly head in the human body. Basically, it says that fluid flow is dependent on radius to the fourth power, inversely dependent on radius to the fourth power, I should say. Or, yeah, resistance is, resistance to flow is inversely dependent on radius. Flow is dependent on radius to the fourth. And resistance is also dependent on length. So, the length of the catheter is so long that the 16 gauge hub, the brown port on a triple lumen central line, is basically equivalent to a 22 gauge IV. It's pretty close. If you math it out, it's pretty close. So you're essentially putting a pediatric IV in an adult. Even though it looks really fancy and it's in a gigantic vein and the catheter itself is huge, it's really not going to do you a whole lot of good in terms of like volume resuscitation. So for that, there's a cordis, which is a well, there's several different sizes, but usually it's a 8.5 or 9 French. French is also a measure of diameter, like gauge, and I've forgotten the conversion, but 9 French is gigantic. It's really big. If you just let a liter of fluid run to gravity through a 9 French cordis, it will go in around like 5 minutes, I would say. Maybe a little more. 5 to 10, certainly under 10 minutes. So it's that's a big boy there. And generally, if I feel like I'm gonna need a central line for a case, I put one of those in. That's kind of a gross oversimplification of my plan, but if it's a surgery where I think the patient might lose some blood and I need to volume resuscitate them, they get a cordis. There are other things to consider there, like how long the patient's going to be in the hospital, and like, are they going to need that when they go to the floor? And the floor is what we call the general, like, you know, normal hospital, basically. Like, not the ICU or something like that. Because most of the time, patients can have just a regular triple lumen, like we saw placed earlier in those videos. They can have that on the floor. Nurses are comfortable taking care of those, but not with cortices.
An excellent thank.
So that is something to consider as well. So if you want that patient to have that central access for a long time without, you know, exchanging it, then maybe a triple lumen is a better bet. And use like a larger IV, like a peripheral IV for your volume. So that's sort of advanced management, but that's kind of how I think about it. And again, I generally err on the side of bigger is better. Because like if you're already getting central access, you might as well go whole hog. But there's lots of schools of thought on that.
Unlike these, sometime farewell.
Yeah, central lines are fun, man. That's one of those things that's like anesthesia's thing. Like there are lots of people who train to place them, like surgeons do, and I guess probably radiologists do. Like for placing tunneled catheters and stuff like that. So a tunneled catheter is when you basically like run the tubing under somebody's skin to try to keep it sterile. It's sort of like a pseudo long-term solution if somebody needs a dialysis catheter or like a central line for some reason. Then you can do that. Tunneled central lines, tunneled dialysis catheters. Man, I don't know that I need GMP on this while I have the Death's Heart. That already gives me 2 more projectiles. Yikes.
When I'm ready, and not before.
Not before. But yeah, it's nice to be able to knock those things in. And my advice is to get good at those quickly. Like, seek out a lot of opportunities to place central lines and really kind of learn what... so I said this in Discord, but... so by the way, if you're watching this and aren't a member of the Discord, please join. ! Discord. We'll get you there. Or there's a link in my Twitch, too. Anyway. Like, a lot of... Even though central lines are... A lot of them are done under ultrasound guidance, you still need to sort of have a feel for what... like what they feel like, you know, like what it feels like when you're like, oh yeah, I'm in the blood vessel, it's awesome, I'm in the vein, I'm drawing back blood, this is great, it's good, everything's going well. Because sometimes you can get like a little bit of blood return, but it's not quite what you're looking for, and that oftentimes means either you're like partially in the blood vessel, or you skewered the shit out of the blood vessel and you're like just kind of collecting blood from the subacute tissue. So that's not great. And then like when your wire meets resistance, like I was saying, it kinks super easy, so you don't want to like try to force it places because it'll bend and then you're fucked and you really can't do anything. And sometimes that happens even if you're in the right place, because those wires are just fucking flimsy. They're terrible. So, which, that said, can be a good thing, because if it goes real smoothly, you can be very confident that you're in the right place. It's like it's pretty tough to force that wire somewhere that it doesn't belong. You can do it, but it's not easy. Yeah, that's one of those things that I think of as normal, like I do every day, that other people are just like, you do what? You put that shit in somebody's neck? Holy crap. So I mentioned the size of the dialysis catheter. I'm going to look that up in just a second here, so you guys have some sort of idea of what I'm talking about. I said it's a mechanical pencil. It is like literally the size of a mechanical pencil. I'm going to see if I can find a like picture of it up against something. Ah, the balls of zeal. Hilarious. Makes me laugh every time. I've played this game for years. I still see the things and it's like, it's just a pair of danglies. Just stole that dude's balls. Oh, there's ice shots everywhere. Ice shots everywhere. Wait, was there a waypoint in there? Oh no, it's right here. That's right. Okay. Let's assign this skill point. I want spell suppression. And then we're going to look at dialysis catheter sizes. Which window do I not want anymore? So 15 centimeters in length, so that's 6 inches, right? That's not the scary part. Yeah, that's it. But I want to see it, like, next to something. Pediatric split cath, that's sad. It's sad that that needs to exist. Let's see. I mean, you can kind of get an idea of how girthy these things are by looking at that. I mean, those are, like, you remember the caps from this video? It was the previous one. So when did he cap it? He capped it at, like, the end, right? Yeah, there we go. So you can sort of see how big the cap is compared with this tubing. Now look at this. So the cap is like the same size as the tubing, right? Like the end of this hub is the same size as this tube. It's big. It's really big. You don't want one of those in your neck. Believe me. I mean, because that means your kidneys are failing, so of course you don't want one, but yeah. Not a great way to spend your afternoon. For sure. Superior Hallowed Manifest. Sure, clear trash mobs. Yeah, so that's a central line thing. Hopefully that explains something. And yeah, again, it's a thing that takes a lot of practice, and there is a lot of feel to it, a lot of art, I guess you'd say, which is sort of too bad, because I wish it was more, like, I wish the barrier to entry was lower, but you pretty much just have to do it. Unfortunately, with anesthesia, you know, you get a lot of asleep people, you know, so you can just, like, stick somebody who's asleep. You're not, like, torturing some poor awake guy. But that time will come. That time comes pretty quick, where they just call you up to the ICU and have somebody who's struggling, who needs it. They're awake, and you're up. You gotta do it. Templar Courts. So I don't know that I really like GMP on this so much. Where are my support gyms at? Let's see. What else? What's the order here? In order of importance. Crit damage? Do I crit that much though? I probably don't at this point. No, I don't. So, I want melee damage with attacks. And we'll see how we do with that. Oh bother. Meh. I guess he'll just sit there. Oh, I guess I don't. So that certainly seems quite a lot stronger. And I'm already firing multiple projectiles because of my bow, so I think I'm okay with that. Fizz resistant? Well, not much I can do about that. Good times. Yeah, I'm liking this build so far, though. Nice. Okay, I'm running right into the freaking heralds. Not smart. Not smart. Man, I do not envy you guys who are entering residency. I remember that feeling. Like with Central Lines in particular, I didn't do one for like a long time. Like I don't think I did one in my CA1 year for like 4 months or something. And so I felt like super behind and was really nervous about it. Like anxiety was growing constantly. So I get it. I should have... Damn, I should have rolled that. Hit it before I could quit it. Story of my life. Yeah, well, at least give me a chaos, that's fine. I'll take that. Yeah, anesthesia sucks because it's got like 2 intern years. You have to be the guy who has no idea what the hell's going on twice. Whereas I feel like with other services, other specialties, you kind of like get that intern year out of the way, and then it's pretty much like, you know, now you learn some more specifics, but it's kind of more of the same. Not with anesthesia, no sir. It is the operating room is a very different environment than anywhere else. Oh yeah, I forgot the other thing. So I'll read this. I was fortunate enough to take a screenshot of it before the author on Reddit deleted it. Alright, so basically the background is that there was a residency program, and one of the residents committed suicide. Which happens, because residency is ultra stressful, and just sort of generally a terrible place to be. And so this email was sent out, and I'll read this to you if you can't see it. So, as our program grieves the loss of residents, we all experience loss in different ways. For some of us, working can be a welcome distraction that gives us purpose. You may recognize this from places such as Auschwitz. Work sets you free. My German is not good, but Arbeit macht frei? Yeah? Maybe? Yeah, hey. Work sets you free. Working can be a welcome distraction that gives us purpose. For others, time off work is needed to process things and heal. If anyone needs time off from patient care, please just reach out and let us know, and we will support you. However, you will not get time off. Guaranteed. We are here for you at any time and talking to you. All is what we enjoy the most, so please do not hesitate to call. For anyone who is interested in volunteering, our colleagues at hospital have been kind enough to cover down through Friday, but we will unfortunately need coverage at the ICU starting Saturday. For transparency, this is to cover 4 residents' scheduled shifts, and we know this is a particularly burdensome ask. Like, so work sets you free. We need to cover this. Like, we know you're hurting. we know this is difficult. Please cover this person's shifts. And like, I would write this off as, you know, just some misstep, you know, some social, like, horrible faux pas that the chief residents perpetrated on their residents. But that's honestly, like,
And not before.
doesn't surprise me. It seems pretty standard, pretty typical of the resident way of thinking. So, as I understand it, given the background that I read from that post before it was deleted, that particular rotation wasn't something that was, like, critical. Like, the residents were just sort of there as, you know, adjuncts to an already fully staffed ICU. And so those shifts weren't really, like, necessary for the hospital in question, right? So this is just, like, they could have let that go. So you have this interesting dynamic where I think it's well understood from everybody in academic medicine that if residents disappeared, hospitals would collapse overnight because residents do so much work. I mean, they're essentially indentured servants. You would have to pay. I mean, residents make, you know, 60 grand a year, something like that now. Correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who are currently in residency. I made like 50-ish. I made like 45 until my last year, and that got bumped up to like 53, I think. But they also work 70+ hour weeks, and can, like, are on the hook for anything. You know, like, anything that anybody calls about, they basically have to go do. You're the lowest person in the hospital. So, you are extremely versatile, and you're extremely valuable, but you were shat on and treated terribly. To, you know, working that many hours, you would have to pay 2 mid-level providers, so like nurse practitioners or PAs, to cover that, and that would cost, you know, 250 grand, basically. You know, after you include, like, retirement benefits and stuff. So, yeah. So a resident costs the hospital about 70, you know, mid-70s, maybe $80,000, benefits included, and generates, or prevents them from spending much more on, I don't want to say equivalent labor, but on other people who would perform similar tasks. So you have this kind of interplay of, like, on the one hand, residents are learners, and they're here. It's a privilege to be a resident, and, you know, you're being educated and you're learning your field. And then on the other side, it's like, residents are essential personnel. We can't run this shit without them. So, like, which is it? You know, like, are we gonna pay residents, like, you know, the very valuable, indispensable workers that they are, which is coming, because I think the move towards unionizing is gaining a lot of traction, because residents are just so horribly mistreated. It's insane. So that's coming for sure, but you know, the hospitals have just had it both ways for so long, so very, very long. Like, yeah, they're just learners. They're doing these things because they need to, you know? Because they've got to get this exposure. Oh, actually, we can't function without them. So you don't get time off when your colleague kills himself because his life sucks, or he thinks his life sucks. I think that's really messed up. We had a this isn't quite that egregious, but when I was a senior resident, we had a like an all-resident council meeting. So this is like all the residents of the hospital are in this auditorium, and there's like some, you know, physician oversight board or whatever that works with, it's like a liaison between the hospital administration and the resident council, or the hospital, like the education portion of the hospital at least. And one of the guys on that board basically lectured, like, he said that residency was the best time of his life, and we were all privileged to be there. and he would go back and be a resident forever if he could. So that sort of gives you an insight into the type of person who actually like stays in academic medicine. I mean, if that's, and I'm sure he meant it. I believe that what he was saying he felt was the truth. It's insane. It's utter insanity that was the truth, because residency is dog shit pretty much no matter how you slice it. But like, what an insulting thing to say. And like the fact that somebody actually thinks that is just so ridiculous. Oh, let's play music. Maybe. There we go. But yeah, that's academic medicine, and that's part of why it hasn't changed. It's because the people who really think that residency is like a privilege and a cool thing to do are the ones who stay there and run it. So that's a damn shame. Let's barrage it up. Where the fuck do I keep putting my barrage? Is it on this side? It's on this side. There we go.
The world must be cleansed of impurity.
But yeah, having somebody tell you that you're doing the best part of your life when you're just like getting your ass handed to you is so bad. Such a bad look. Ooh, that hurt. Yeah, and I don't know if that's like, you know, he's just that disconnected or what, but man. Totally indivisible. But yeah, that's just sort of the mentality you're working with, because hospitals make so much money off residents. Like I was saying, it's they don't want anything to change. And there's, you know, in bigger hospitals, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of residents. So you multiply that loss by, you know, 600 people. That's a shitload of money, right? That's a ton of money that they would just have to eat. And they don't want to do that. I mean, we're talking like tens of millions of dollars. And like, if residents start striking, they don't have a choice but to give in. I mean, the problem is that it's hard for residents to strike. It's like the ACGME is a monopoly, and you can't, like, they have it basically set up where it's pretty much impossible to get another job, like get another residency, if you lose yours. You can't really do much. You can't go out on your own and look for spots. I mean, you can, like, technically can, but it doesn't work well. And you have to like arrange a switch or do something very specific with a program that gets you that spot. It's very hard. Your life becomes a nightmare quickly. So like losing a residency spot is extremely high stakes. And again, that's a big reason why things haven't changed. Ow. Like, basically, residents have no leverage whatsoever. But if they if they all band together and take it seriously, hospital would shut down overnight because they don't have enough staff, and the staff that they do have aren't used to working hard. So all the stuff that the residents do and take care of normally, the attendings, like the physicians who work there, would have to, you know, pony up and figure out, and that would go real badly. It would go really badly. Yeah, Sniper Spark is awesome. All the projectiles going everywhere. The fuck? I was nowhere near you when I got burned to death by that. Actually dying 3 times on innocence. That sucks. Give me my life back. Bullet hell, bullet hell. Wow. Man. Where are my resistances? No, not good on fire. That's probably why. God, Emperor of Eternity. So I hope those residents and that residency program eat shit and die. That's the moral message. Because that's terrible bullshit. Ah. Alright, get in the middle of the new thing. I mean, eventually, like, it's for things to really change, it'll take something huge, like an entire hospital's, like major hospital's residency stopping and speaking out, and like going to national, you know, news media outlets and getting a shitload of press. And I think that was kind of on the that was on the verge of happening with Loma Linda not too long ago, and maybe still might. I don't know. I don't know how that situation has played out so far, but it looked very bad for for Loma Linda for a while. Guess I'm playing the just don't get hit game. Needs more life. Oh god. This is atrocious. Maybe I'm not gonna be able to write out my leveling gear the whole time like I thought I might. Gotta get some evasion going on here. Oh god. You were a storm? I would like you to die. That'd be great. Oh, my single target is so bad. There we go. About freaking time. God. Another cool rain. Take that.
Innocence.
With the lowest projectile speed.
And only you.
Of course. Sin. Now let's watch the cutscene. Why not? Katava breaks out of the statue of David. Okay. Let's go. What damnation? I get a kick out of that every time. Alright. I am suppressing spell damage. Woo! Okay. Oh, gotta switch back. I've shot food, X, and things. Cool. There we go. That's much more like it. So, do I like Chain better than Pierce? I don't know. I don't know. That is pretty nice. Hey, it's a bot band. What's going on? And ban. Sweet. I don't really get as much spam as I thought I might. It's kind of weird. I've started to get tons of promotion spam though, or I mean, what's the word? Sponsorship spam from Stream Elements. I guess that's like if you're willing to do that and you get tons of time to just play random games, more power to you. And also I imagine like, I mean this is gonna sound really elitist, but like my time is worth a lot. So like I'm not opposed to trying new games, but if it's just like some random ass mobile game or something that just looks like shit and it's pretty obvious that, you know, they're just, you know, trying to promote it by just getting people to play it for a little bit, which I guess is the whole point of advertising, but like if it just looks like it's some random ass pay to win game, then I'm out, man. I have zero interest in that. That said, I would totally take a sponsorship for like a game that I thought I would play. Like for Monster Train or something. Like I love little crazy indie games. Oh, I haven't played Monster Train on stream for a long time. That game is badass. If you guys like card games, it's sort of like a roguelite card game. It's really cool. Definitely check it out. But I mean, I would do that for free, really. And I do that for free. I would totally promote those brands. My massive audience. You know, one thing that I've noticed about smaller streamers, though, is that, and I mean, I'm like clearly super duper small, but you know, people who have like 50, 60 viewers, 150 viewers, stuff like that, it feels a lot more intimate. You know, they kind of like know the people in their stream a little better, it seems like. Have more time to interact with chat. And there's not just like this wall of text flying by like there is in like Ludwig's stream or something. Feels a lot more personal, I guess. And that's kind of cool. And I think the conversion rate is where I'm going with this. I think the advertisement conversion rate is very high percentage-wise. But clearly, like, you know, if you advertise with like Asmongold or something, and he's like, "This game's fucking awesome," then that's gonna do well for you. If you've got, you know, 40,000 people watching somebody who's like well respected in the game community saying that your game is awesome, your life is pretty good. You're gonna make a lot of money from that. Let's see here. Ah, that's what I was gonna do. Okay, where do I go next? We'll get some more life. I was less than thrilled with that performance against Innocence.
When I'm ready, I'm not
The ossuary. Let's go, ossuary. What's your staff? Oh, that's... If only I could go that way. Get out this entire quest. Where the hell is this routing room? It's a weird layout. Go way the fuck out of the way to get back there. Jeweler's store. There we go. That chain's pretty good when there's like a medium amount of enemies, or a bunch of tightly clustered ones. That's like lots of blasts. Yeah, I forgot I have energy leech on. I wonder if that's actually doing any good. want to like scale frenzy charges with this build, but it doesn't seem like a good plan. I don't know. It seems very point intensive. Hell, and I guess I can't allocate or anoint one because I'm doing Vision Cascade. Oh, which I should probably do. Oh, but I don't even have my amulet on yet. Oh, another thing I should probably do is go to sleep. So I think I probably will. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I am Milk Van Al. I hope you have a great week. Don't forget to join Discord, like I said. I will be back on Wednesday. Hopefully you enjoyed the talk of Central Lines and me bitching about Residency being terrible. Yeah. I think that's all I got for today. So, until next time, have a good one. Have a great week. Thank you again for hanging out. Appreciate it. Have a great night.